You have a garage full of junk, an old couch, a broken refrigerator, a decade of boxes you keep meaning to deal with, so you call the number on the side of one of those bright, shiny trucks. Two friendly people show up in matching shirts, and in 20 minutes, all of it is gone, hauled off like it was nothing. You hand them, let us say, $400. Done. Problem solved. Garage reclaimed. Now follow that $400. Follow that truckload of your old stuff too, because it leads to one of the strangest money trails in any business. Here is the first surprise. The company you called might make more money not hauling your junk than hauling it. What you pay to dump it is a fraction of what you would ever guess. Some of your junk does not get thrown away at all, it gets sold, which means they get paid for it twice. The single biggest slice of your $400 might go to a company that never touched your couch, never sent a truck, and never came anywhere near your garage. So let us open the whole ledger on the junk in your garage, dollar by dollar. Where every dollar of that $400 actually goes, who gets rich off the stuff you threw away, and why the truck in your driveway is the least important part of the entire business. By the end, you will never look at one of those shiny junk trucks the same way again. The buy-in. Start with getting in, because this is famous as one of the easiest businesses on earth to start, and that reputation is a trap. There are two completely different ways to enter. The first is to go independent. You buy a used pickup and a trailer, or a small box truck, for anywhere from a few $1,000s up to maybe $40,000, and you are in business. You get some insurance and a phone number. That is very nearly all of it. You can be running a real junk removal business, keeping every single dollar you earn, for as little as $10,000 all in. Compared to almost any other company you could start, that is nothing. The barrier to entry is almost nothing, which is both the great appeal of this business and, as we will see, its great curse. The second way is to buy a franchise. You pay a big national brand, somewhere between $100,000 and over $300,000 to start, and in return you get the recognizable trucks, the training, a national call center answering your phones, and a whole marketing machine. But you also agree to hand that brand a slice of every single dollar you ever collect, forever. So there are tiers. The solo hauler with one truck, the independent who has grown to a small fleet, the franchisee flying a national brand, and at the very top, the franchisor, the brand itself, which we will come back to, because that is where the real money hides. But notice what you are actually buying at every tier. It is not the truck. A truck is cheap, and almost anyone can buy one on a weekend. What you are really buying, or failing to buy, is a phone that rings. In this business, the junk is everywhere, and the trucks are cheap. The only thing that is scarce is a steady stream of customers, and that, not the hauling, is the whole game. The truck is a commodity. The phone ringing is the fortune. What you inherit. When you start hauling, you inherit a business with a few strange and specific rules baked in. First, you inherit the pricing model, and it is not what you would expect. You do not charge by weight, and you do not charge by the hour. You charge by volume, by how much space the junk fills in your truck. A small pile, an eighth of a truck, might be $100, a quarter truck, a couple hundred, a full truck, $500, $600, $800 or more. Your whole price is about how full the truck gets, which leads to the second thing you inherit. You inherit a beautiful little secret about the dump. Customers assume getting rid of junk is wildly expensive. It is not. At the landfill, the tipping fee averages only around $60 a ton, and most household junk is bulky and light. An old sofa, a mattress, plastic toys, cardboard. It fills your whole truck fast, so the customer sees a packed truck and pays for a packed truck, but it barely weighs anything when you actually roll onto the scale at the dump. So you charge the customer for a full truck and then pay a shockingly small amount to actually dump it. That gap between what you charge for a full truck and the tiny fee to empty it is the quiet heart of the whole business. But you also inherit the ugly side. You inherit the fact that you are the product. This is brutal physical labor, and your income is capped by how many hours your own body can work. You also inherit a thin moat. Because the barrier to entry is so low, there is always someone with a cheaper truck willing to undercut you, which means you are never really competing on skill, you are competing on marketing and on price, and that competition never lets up. The revenue layers. So let us actually follow the money now, layer by layer, on that single $400 job. Layer 1, the haul fee itself. This is the obvious money, the $400 the customer hands over, priced by how much of the truck the junk fills. A big national brand averages over $400 a job. An independent hauler with an unmarked truck often averages closer to $280. Same couch, very different price, depending on the name on the truck. Layer 2, and this is the one nobody sees, the resale. A surprising amount of what you call junk is not junk at all. That old dresser gets cleaned up and sold. The working appliance gets flipped. Any metal, the copper and steel, gets stripped out and sold to a scrapyard, where clean copper can fetch around $4 a pound. A load with a sorting bay behind it might recover an extra $30 to $60 in scrap and resale value, sometimes far more on a good haul full of metal and working appliances. So they get paid by you to take it away, and then paid again by someone else to sell it right back into the world. Paid twice, on the same couch, once by the person getting rid of it, and once by the person buying it back. But here is the honest catch on that layer, the one the get-rich-quick videos skip. Reselling only works if there is actually a buyer. Hauling a truckload of furniture to a resale yard that nobody buys from is not extra revenue. It is just a longer, more expensive drive. So for most simple haul and dump operators, this layer is tiny. For the ones who build a real sorting and resale operation, it can be a serious bonus. Layer 3, the commercial contracts. Smart operators do not chase one-time garage cleanouts. They chase property managers, real estate agents, and construction sites, the clients who need junk hauled over and over, estate cleanouts, eviction cleanouts, hoarding jobs, the big, messy, high-value work that shows up steadily. This repeat commercial work is the closest thing this business has to steady, reliable income, and it is what separates a real company from a person with a truck. One good property management contract can be worth more than 50 random garage cleanouts. Layer 4, and this is the big one, the layer that changes everything, the franchise royalty. We will give that its own moment, because it is the punchline of the whole business. Here is where that $400 finally leads, and it is the twist that explains the entire industry. If you called a big national junk brand, then somewhere around 16 cents out of every single dollar you paid does not go to the crew, or the truck, or the dump. It flows straight up to the franchisor, the parent company that owns the brand. Roughly 8% of everything as a royalty, plus another 8% or so for the National Marketing Fund and the call center. On your $400 job, that is more than $60, gone off the top, to a company that never sent a truck, never lifted your couch, and never came within 100 miles of your garage. $60 for the name and the phone number alone. Listen to that again. The biggest, most reliable slice of the money in junk removal does not go to the people who do the hauling. It goes to the people who own the phone number. For the brand on the side of the truck, this is not a hauling business at all. It is a franchising business. They are not really in the trade of moving your old furniture. They are in the trade of selling other people the right to move it, and then collecting a small, clean cut of every single load, forever, without ever getting their hands dirty. Once you see that, the whole thing flips. Whoever is sweating in your driveway is running a hard, physical, low-margin volume business. The company whose name is painted on their truck is running a light, clean, enormously profitable royalty business on top of them. Same couch. Two completely different games, and only one of them scales into a fortune. So let us total up that $400 job honestly, from the hauler's side, because it is tighter than it looks. Start with the crew. Labor eats up around a fifth of the job. Then the dump fee, the fuel to get there and back, the wear and insurance on the truck, and the bags and supplies. For an independent, that still leaves a healthy chunk, which is why a well-run operator can clear 15 to 30% in true profit. Not bad at all. But now run the same job as a franchisee. You pay all those same costs, the crew, the dump, the fuel, the truck, and then, before you keep a penny, you also hand 16% of the whole ticket up to the brand. That royalty comes off the top no matter what. So the franchisee has to squeeze a real profit out of what is left after both the real costs and that 16%, which is why so many of them run flat out and still feel like they are barely getting ahead, and the whole thing is under quiet, constant pressure. Tipping fees at the dump climb 6 to 10% a year, so a hauler who sets a price in January and does not raise it is silently losing margin every month. Fuel swings, insurance rises. This business looks simple, but the margins are thin enough that mispricing a few jobs or ignoring the rising cost to dump, is exactly how an operator ends up busy and broke. The trap. Here is the trap, and it is a subtle one, because it is disguised as the easiest opportunity in the world. That pitch is irresistible. A cheap truck, endless demand, people always have junk, and they pay you in cash the same day. It sounds like free money, and that is precisely the problem. Because it is so easy to start, everyone starts. The barrier to entry that let you in also lets in the next 10 people with a pickup, all willing to undercut your price. That moat is paper thin, so you are trapped in a grind. As an independent, your income is capped by your own body and your own hours, and the moment you stop hauling, the money stops. To grow past yourself, you have to hire crews, buy trucks, dispatch routes, and build real systems, which is a completely different and far harder business than swinging a couch into a truck bed. If you took the franchise route to escape all that, you traded your ceiling for a landlord. You now pay that 16% forever, which means the brand's leads have to be worth more than 16% of your revenue every year, or you would have been better off alone. Many franchisees quietly discover, a year or two in, that they are not, and that they are working just as hard for a thinner slice. So the trap is that the low barrier which makes this look like easy money is the exact same thing that makes it brutally hard to make real money. The history digression. To understand how junk removal became a branded, franchised empire in the first place, you have to go back to 1989 and a hungry college kid in a drive-thru. Brian Scudamore was 18 years old, sitting in his car in a McDonald's line in Vancouver, trying to figure out how to pay for school. In front of him was a beat-up old pickup truck with a hand-painted sign advertising a hauling service. Most people would not have looked twice at it. He thought, I can do that. Within a week, he had spent $700 on an old Ford truck and started a one-man operation he called the Rubbish Boys, because, as he put it, he wanted it to sound bigger than just him. His tagline, which he still loves to repeat, was, "We will stash your trash in a flash." Now here is his real insight, the one that built an empire. Junk hauling had always existed, but it was seen as dirty, informal, and a little bit shady. Unmarked trucks, cash deals, guys who might show up, or might not. Scudamore's idea was to do the exact opposite: clean, shiny, branded trucks, uniformed, friendly, smiling crews, upfront pricing, and a call center that always answered on the first ring. He was not really selling junk removal. He was selling trust and professionalism, wrapped around one of the oldest trades there is. In 1998, he dropped the old name, took on a memorable toll-free number, and turned the whole thing into a franchise, letting other people buy into his clean, trusted brand. He had turned hauling garbage into a polished, scalable business, and the modern junk removal industry was born from a $700 truck and a better idea. So you would assume the company that invented this whole polished industry was untouchable. It was not. Its near death is the sharpest lesson in the entire business. By the mid-2000s, that pioneering brand was a genuine giant. It had grown to 150 franchises, spread across nearly every major market in North America, and it had roared past $100 million in system-wide sales. From the outside, it looked unstoppable, the polished king of a category it had created single-handedly, but underneath, cracks were forming. Its founder and his right hand, the operator who had helped build the machine, parted ways. New leadership was brought in, and did not fit. Then, in 2008, the Great Recession hit. People and businesses everywhere stopped spending on anything that was not essential, and paying someone to haul away old furniture is about as non-essential as it gets. Revenue did not just stall, it fell hard, dropping from over $100 million down toward $85 million in a single brutal stretch, tens of millions of dollars just gone. After 20 years of building his company from a single $700 truck, the founder later admitted the business he had poured his life into was nearly out of cash. In short, the empire that had invented branded junk removal almost went bankrupt at the very top of the industry it built. It survived, it refocused, and it eventually grew far larger than before. But the lesson is stark. Even the giant that created this business, at over $100 million in sales, discovered that the hauling was never a safe moat. It was a fragile machine that could stall in a single bad year. So who actually builds a lasting, profitable junk business, and how? Survivors understand exactly which game they are in. 1. They win on volume and routing. They price every job off their own real costs, never racing a cheaper truck to the bottom, and they pack their days tight, hitting the most jobs they can before dark, because the money in this business is in throughput, not heroics. 2. They own the commercial relationships. They lock in the property managers, the realtors, and the busy contractors who feed them repeat work, turning a one-time cash business into something much closer to steady, predictable income. 3. They only chase resale when there is a real buyer. They build genuine scrap and donation channels that add money, and they ignore the feel-good hauling of stuff nobody will ever pay them for, which is just an expensive extra drive. 4. If they are the brand, they understand that franchising is the actual business. Their scalable fortune was never in the hauling. It was in building a trusted name and selling other people the right to use it, then collecting a cut of everything, forever. And 5. They reprice constantly. They track the rising tipping fees and fuel, and raise their prices to match, because in a business with margins this thin, a single frozen price list can quietly bleed a whole year of profit. None of that is about being strong enough to lift a couch. It is pricing, routing, commercial contracts, real resale channels, and, for the smartest of all, franchising. In a business this easy to enter, that discipline is the only thing that separates the ones who get rich from the ones who just get tired. With the verdict, so does owning a junk removal business actually work? Let us run it, and treat this as a model, not a real company. Say you run a sharp independent operator. You have a couple of trucks, you price off your true costs, and you have locked in a stable of property managers and realtors who call you every week. You route your crews tightly, you pull real money out of scrap and resale channels you actually built, and you raise your prices steadily as your costs rise. In a setup like that, you can clear a strong, healthy margin, 20% or more, and build a real, sellable business worth a serious multiple of its yearly profit. That is the good version. Now the other one. You buy a truck because it looked like easy money. You price by guessing. You never track your climbing dump fees. You rely on random one-time cleanouts you have to fight 10 other cheap trucks to win, and you spend your days doing exhausting physical labor for a margin that keeps shrinking. You are the busiest you have ever been, working harder than you ever have in your life, and somehow always broke. If you bought a franchise to avoid all that, you are handing 16% off the top to a brand whose leads may or may not be worth it. But here is the real verdict. Junk removal is not really a bet on how much you can haul. For the operator, it is a bet on marketing, routing, and pricing discipline. And for the brand, it is a bet on franchising. Winners understood that the junk was just the raw material, and the real business was the system wrapped around it, the marketing, the routing, and the brand. Losers thought the business was the hauling itself, and slowly, one exhausting load at a time, worked themselves into the ground. So the honest answer is this: in the right hands, run as a sharp volume and marketing business, or scaled as a franchise brand, junk removal can be seriously lucrative, a real fortune built quietly out of other people's garbage. But entered naively, as just a strong back and a cheap truck, it is one of the fastest ways to be extremely busy, permanently exhausted, and barely making a dime. So look again at that truckload of junk pulling out of your driveway. It looks like the simplest business in the world. A truck, 2 strong people, a run to the dump. And that simplicity is exactly the illusion. That junk was never the business. For the 2 people who carried your couch, the business is volume, how many driveways they can reach before dark, and how sharply they priced each one. For the shiny brand painted on the side of their truck, it is not a hauling business at all. It is a franchising business, quietly taking a cut of every single load it never lifts. You paid $400 to make your junk disappear, but the money did not disappear with it. It just fanned out. A slice to the crew, a little to the dump, a bit to the scrapyard, and the biggest, cleanest slice of all, to a company that never once touched your garage. Junk removal is not a business about junk. It is a business about who owns the phone number on the truck, and it is built, quietly and very profitably, out of the things the rest of us throw away.